The economy is always listed as the most important subject for many voters. If you were in Congress, what would you do to try to improve the economy, and what could you do as a congressional representative to ensure that people in the 1st District have access to plentiful, good-paying jobs?
So, first of all, I think that jobs in the economy normally is listed up top, and it's very, very important. I also think that we're in an era where values and protection of the flag and really being very interested where the country is headed is right there at the top with it for the first time, especially with everything that's been going on nationally. As far as jobs are concerned, I finished my time in the Tennessee legislature as the chair of the Commerce Committee. So I'm used to dealing with business owners. Our goal from a business owner and business standpoint, especially if we are fortunate and unfortunate to serve in Congress, is to remove red tape. We want business owners to be business owners, be able to take that risk, use their expertise, just run their business without interference from governmental entities as much as possible. I'm also very interested in the cost of compliance. What does it cost a business owner to run their business? And if the federal government's in the way, or there's pieces and parts or steps we can take to be helpful to remove that makes sense, I want to be there. As far as the 1st Congressional District is concerned, it's my home, and I want to see it grow. Part of what I have talked about for the last few months that we've been on the campaign trail is what is the role of the congressional seat? How does it help? How does it help individual communities grow? Sometimes it's building relationships and bringing people together. Sometimes it's recruiting businesses from outside the area to be here. Sometimes it's helping the existing businesses be able to augment their activities. And so is it one thing? No, it's all of the above. And I'm looking forward to doing that, but it's as much about being open and having an open line of communication with the business owners and folks that are interested in business. We have a tremendous opportunity in the Tri-Cities with entrepreneurship. And it's kind of like it's a grow your own mentality. And so I want to be supportive of all of the above.
What is the best way legislatively to prevent gun violence, and specifically school shootings and mass shootings?
Well, when you're talking about gun violence, you have to be very wise, and you have to be very sensitive. Education is key and important. Here in our neck of the woods, we have grown up with firearms pretty much woven into the fabric of our everyday existence. But we need education, encourage education, what's the proper use of the firearm, proper handling techniques, and ultimately, just like in the handgun carry permit course that in Tennessee from the state, use of deadly force, and what is it okay to fire, and what are the consequences, and really an education process. From a legislative standpoint, you're looking at a firearm, and the firearm is not what causes the harm and the injury. It's the intent of the person that's pulling the trigger. And so we have a heart and mind problem as much as anything else. But from a legislative standpoint, I'm going to be on the side of education, being supportive of our constitutional right to keep and bear arms. But you're asking a question of how do you legislate a person's intent, and that's a heart and mind thing that's bigger than what Congress can attack.
What is your plan for fixing America's immigration problem?
Well, illegal means illegal. We want people to come to this country legally through the proper channels. At the same time, we have to ask the question, the immigration system that's before us, is it antiquated? Are there areas that we might be able to increase its effectiveness? We've got to build the wall. You cannot have an effective immigration system without controlling your borders. And I would suggest and argue you can't have a country without proper control of your borders. But you start with control your borders and then work on the immigration system. And when you have a business-friendly environment, a market-friendly environment, folks going through a proper system can come in and out legally, appropriately, and that's a good thing. We want people here that want to be here. But we cannot continue the free flow and expect the country to be successful in the long run.
How important is it to not increase the national debt and to not run annual deficits?
Well, I support a balanced budget. It's been, I think it was Congressman Jenkins was the last time that there was a balanced budget put forward. We do it in Tennessee. We do it around our kitchen table. If I sit back and say, I've got these list of expenses this month, and how am I going to make it? And my wife and I put that budget together, that should be no different for the country. Now that's a tall order, because when you have a printing press and you can print those dollars, it's very difficult when you're fighting for everybody's fair share and piece of the pie. But there's no reason that we cannot have a balanced budget, but we've got to work toward that, and that's where I'm going to be, because if we can start there, then we can start to turn the tide. You cannot endlessly spend. I've often operated from the perspective that the federal government does not have a revenue problem; it's got a spending problem, and we've got to be very careful about the never-ending Christmas tree bills, where this is what we need to get done, and oh yeah, you can do it, but we've got to have these other 500 pages, and unfortunately, that's the Washington way. And so we want to work toward, and I want to work toward, a balanced budget. And become as fiscally responsible as you can be. And we have to, because generationally speaking, passing the debt forward and passing the debt forward and passing the debt forward, eventually it won't work and won't last.
What, if anything, do you think President Trump could have done better in his handling of COVID-19?
Well, I think that we're talking about a situation that has never been seen before. And so it's easy to be critical of, well, did we start early enough? Was it an intense enough message? Was it too intense? When you're talking about a state's response. I think President Trump, as he got engaged and as his team got engaged, has done a wonderful job on the education side. I think that each state has really taken off and taken control as they felt best for their state. And you can see a difference. You can see a difference in the success rate in Tennessee with some of the decisions that were made by the task force here versus, say, in New York State. And I realize the population's different, the density of the population's different. But the main thing is we know that it's a threat, we know that it's a problem. I'm not, it's hard for me to be critical when you've got an entire structure and leadership that how do you plan for something like this? And so it's a consistent and constant change and update and growth. But the good news is we know much, much better what we're dealing with and can hopefully act accordingly.
Do you believe climate change is real? And if so, what do you think is the best approach to combat it?
So consistently where I'm going to be with my policy and where I'm going to be with my vote is with science. From a federal standpoint, it's what can you afford? What's the U.S.'s role as far as dealing with that? I'm going to listen to all sides. I'm going to listen to everybody that comes to the table, including the people that perhaps don't think it's as big an issue as being purported by one side or the other. Because when you're dealing with policy, you want to listen to everybody that's in the room and then come with the best result. But I'm going to follow the science.
If elected to Congress, what would you do to address the racial tension that's been evident in recent protests, and how would you try to improve the relations in the 1st District?
Well, so this is part of what I like to call the bully pulpit side of the congressional seat. There's 3 parts to me. There's policy, coming, and folks know where I'm coming from, which is a Christian conservative worldview. There's interaction with the federal government, so Social Security, disability. How does the congressional office take care of people, veterans? And then the last part's bully pulpit. Whether it's from a business standpoint or whether it is trying to bring people together, that's something that the congressional seat and congressional office could be used to do, I believe, where it is appropriate. I operate from a very simple statement, and it's a biblical statement, but it's love your neighbor. And if we can figure that part out, and I don't know that a member of Congress or the Congress cannot legislate a heart and mind issue like that. But if we love our neighbor and our neighbor's loving their neighbor and everybody is trying to take care of each other with that sense of community, no matter the racial line, no matter what divisions that may be discussed or thrust upon us or that are real, we can get through this. We really can, and I'm hopeful that we can. But if we say, well, we've got to throw this money at it, or we got to create this new governmental office, or whatever Washington's solution is, that's not going to be the answer. The answer is going to be in our communities, and it's going to be us truly just being with each other, loving on each other, and saying, oh, you got a different perspective than me. We may not agree on much, but we're still human, and we can still love on each other, and we can respect each other. And so I would love to play a role in that and try to be helpful any way that I can. But if anything that we've seen about Washington and the Congress up to this point is unfortunately it has become a discussion about a power play, and that's so wrong. And so I want to be a part of a solution.
Do you support a regional economic development effort that could involve merger, say, of NetRep and Networks, for instance, the economic development organizations, and possibly even chambers of commerce in the Tri-Cities? And if so, what role should a congressperson take?
Well, those are going to be decisions based that they've got to make for themselves. I think that it's entirely possible to still be Sullivan County and Washington County and Greene County and Unicoi and Johnson and Sevier County, and I can name all the counties of the Congressional District, but it is completely appropriate to have your unique identity, to be competitive in the way that you need to be competitive, because we all bring something different to the table. At the same time, it's okay to work together. And so those are decisions that will have to be made amongst those groups and really at the local level. What I am very much supportive of is helping us grow. That's why I work so hard on the aerospace park at the airport, which is actually part of my State House district. But that has the potential in the next 5, 10, 15 years to be the hub, which is what we desperately need. And again, it goes back to all of the above. Timothy, what do you want? You want manufacturing jobs? Yes. Do you want retail growth? Sure, absolutely, without a doubt. And how we get there, we've just got to figure it out. But working together regionally is fine, but it's also completely fine to be yourself.
Is there any approach the president has taken to his job that you would have done differently?
Maybe a few less tweets, and maybe a little bit of a filter there. But as a whole, President Trump, his agenda, his policies have been very much pro-America. That's something that I want to be. I think that that's good for Tennessee. I think it's good for us. And I think it's good for the country. His style is very much that of a New Yorker, and very much that of a very brash and bold business guy. And in business, he's hailed, pretty much as a genius. And in politics, he's speaking a different language. And politicians are used to being a little bit softer and a little bit more malleable. And let's talk about it in this fashion. He's not like that. And so if there's one thing, it'd be the tweet side of things. But even then, the reason he's had to do Twitter is to try to get beyond that barrier of some of the bigger media outlets and mainstream media, the big guys. And so he's been very successful with that. But with that comes some interesting tweets. But policy-wise, Tax Cut and Jobs Act, fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic. And once we get through what the virus is, we're going to be in fantastic shape. We're going to take right back off again.
All right, last question. A chance to speak to voters. What makes you the best candidate to represent the district?
Well, I'm the proven conservative. And what I mean by that is there's people that are saying in this Republican primary that they're conservative, but they've never had to take a vote, so you don't really know where they stand. Or you've got folks that have had to take a vote and they were not conservative. And so that's why I received the endorsement of the House Freedom Caucus, Jim Jordan, and the House Freedom Fund. We're very grateful to have that because they're the conservatives of kind of the conservative side of the Republican conference. And they recognize that, along with Senator Rick Santorum, who won Tennessee in 2012, that I'm going to be an ally of President Trump, that I'm going to be exactly who I have been in the State House. We're just going to take that to the federal level. And so I would ask that if anyone has questions of me, that they can call me directly. I'm going to give out my cell phone number, which is You know, some people think I'm nuts for doing it, but I've been doing it, you know, for almost 10 years now. But it's 423-646-1589, because I'm happy to answer questions. When you look at my record, it's unique. When you look at my energy and passion, it's unique. When you look at what I want to do and be helpful, not just for businesses and business owners, but for people, and to recognize that I don't want a barrier between me and my constituents. The congressional office, I had, and I'll share this quickly, I had an individual in Sevier County, he says they won't even know who I am. When I call up there to Washington, D.C. and call that 202 number, they won't even recognize who I am. And I'll never get to talk to you again. And I said, well, why are you calling the office? Call me. Because part of what has happened with Washington is they've forgotten who they work for. And I don't want that to ever happen with me. And so my approach is totally different from every other candidate. My history is unique. My voting record is unique. And so I'm excited about serving the folks of the 1st District.
Timothy Hill, thank you for talking to us this morning, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and weekend.
Thank you very much.